Welcome to Age, Pension, Super and Retirement. I am your host Yvonne, and as always, this podcast is information only and not personal advice. In today's episode, we are looking at cashing out long service leave and annual leave versus taking it at full-time or part-time rates. And to discuss this, I would like to welcome back the Director of Prosperity Planning Partners, Gail McHugh. To start things off, Gail, could you talk about how superannuation payments are perhaps made when leave is used rather than cashed out?
This is a really interesting topic. We see people going, I'm going to cash out my long service leave and my annual leave. And I go, why would you do that? Is the first thing that goes through my head. And people are like, what do you mean, Gail? I said, because if you actually take the leave versus cashing it out, you do two things. The first thing is you still continue to accrue superannuation, which means your employer has a legal obligation to pay you superannuation on the leave that you take. However, if you cash it out, they have no legal obligation to do anything of the sort. So effectively, by cashing it out, you will pay more tax in the short term because all of your leave entitlements are going to be paid out in a single pay period, which means that you're going to more than likely be in the top tax bracket. So you'll lose quite a bit to tax until you do your next tax return. If you're going to be cashing your leave out, you will miss out on that superannuation, and that can be a significant amount. If you've got, say, even 6 months worth of accrued long service leave and annual leave, you're missing out on 12%, because that's the current accrual rate for superannuation on those amounts that you would cash out.
That's so helpful, Gail. Can I also ask, I'm curious, is there additional accumulation of leave whilst you're on leave?
Absolutely, there is. So depending upon what your entitlement is as far as whether you're working full-time position or a percentage of a position, say 0.6 of a position, which is, say, 3 days a week, you will effectively still continue to accrue leave based on your contract, because each award's got a different accrual rate. Some have got more higher than others. The only time you won't accrue it is if you've been on casual, because the casual has that component, 25% loading, that includes leave.
So to be clear, if our leave is cashed out, there's goodbye to any more super during that period.
Correct. It's given up.
Could you explain how taking leave, so long service leave, annual leave, at part pay could perhaps help an older spouse access Centrelink entitlements earlier?
Absolutely. I have actually encouraged clients to do this a number of times. People go, why on earth would you do that? Because they were under the asset test, but under the income test, had the younger spouse stayed working full time, it meant that the older spouse who was age pension eligible on an age basis would not receive any form of support. Whereas if the younger spouse took their leave at half pay, it allowed the older spouse to get a part age pension. And the advantages of that was it gave them access to a pension card, which then gave them access to discounts on rates, registration, electricity, medication, and healthcare.
That's amazing. And just to flip it a bit, I guess if the younger spouse perhaps wasn't working and the older spouse was and they hit 67, I guess the same is also true if that older spouse continues to work past 67 but reduces their leave at the end of their work time.
100%. And the same can apply even if they are a self-employed person and they aren't working 40 hours a week. They might only work, say, 20 hours a week. It's not going to stop the younger spouse from getting a part pension, vice versa. If the younger spouse is working part-time in their own business, it's not going to stop the older spouse from getting a pension.
Wow, this strategy people really should know about and consider. So with hearing all these benefits, is there any reason why someone may cash out all their leave?
Some people, and I have had a client say to me, Gail, well, I'm going to cash out my leave and I'm going to do this with it. We're going to go to Europe and blah, blah, blah. And I went, can I just ask you to let's talk about the options. So we can do it your way. And I worked out roughly how much tax they would pay and what they would miss out in super. And then I said, okay, now if we do it at full pay, we're not going to get the entitlement for your partner, as in the older partner who was pension age. Third option was, let's take your leave at part pay. You have more than enough money accrued in other sources that we can fund your trip to Europe with. And if you take it at part pay, your partner will get a part age pension. Because you're under age 67, your super will stay hidden from Centrelink's asset testing. You will also not pay as much tax, and you will continue to accrue superannuation for all the time you're on leave, as in employer would pay it. And add to that, you will also be accruing leave while you're on leave. And she went, well, why do people cash it out?
That's my question. Why do they, other than not thinking it through?
It's because they have no idea of what they're missing out on. Traditionally, people, when they finished work, they saw that cashing out of leave entitlements almost as like a bit of a cash cow. They didn't understand what they were missing out on.
And is this an option that most people have a right to take, or is it negotiated?
It's never a right. Put it this way. If you go on leave, effectively your employer is like, well, they're on extended leave. We can't really employ somebody fully to take this rollover because we can't be sure that they're not going to come back. So they might have to put, say, a 6-month or a 12-month contract person in because they can't guarantee that person a job past when you said you were using your leave. You said, I want to use 3 months worth of leave at half pay. It extend to 6 months. So that all they can do is offer your person that comes in to replace you while you're on leave is a fixed term contract. So some employers will be very flexible and go, sure, we can do that. But we also know that we're going to potentially have this issue of our business is growing. We're going to need more than one person to do this job anyway. So they may actually go, let's start to train this person before you go off on leave. And then they keep the person, and it gives the person who's thinking of retiring a chance to go, let me come back. Oh my God, I don't like this work environment anymore. It's changed so much in the last 6 months. Or, oh my God, I hate the concept of being retired. I'm bored and I want to go back to work. Or, not a problem. Thanks, boss. See you later.
So interesting. So just assume that someone was older and they wanted to get to their 7, 8, 9 or however many years because they get some long service leave. If they were thinking that they wanted to retire and they wanted to try and take their leave at part-time or half-time, is there a timing where they sort of actually put in their notice, or is that like not a specific thing?
I think it's something that depends on each employment situation, because some companies have got HR people and they're going to be aware of people's potential, leave accruals. Others are like, oh, you've been here 10 years. Oh, my God, you want to take long service leave? I haven't planned for that. Because long service leave is a financial burden on a business. As a small business owner, it is a financial burden because you have to pay that out regardless if the person is entitled to it one way or another, whether it be through a lump sum when they want it paid out, or alternately, as I have said to my clients in the past, I've gone, please speak to your boss and say to them, hey, how would you feel if instead of cashing my long service leave out, I took it at pay, either at full or part 50%? Pay, because it actually helps the business's cash flow. And most employers, if they're honest, they will actually look at it and go, wow, thank you. That takes a lot of pressure off us. We will happily agree to you taking your leave at half pay or at full pay. We don't care. It's not going to be a case of us having to find 50 grand to pay you out.
So if someone is older, 67, and they're working and they're thinking of retiring and they've got long service leave and other leave accruals, they could really look into, and I assume half pay is the only way to take it, full pay or half pay? I don't know if there's any.
Well, that's the only ways I've ever seen it done, because it just makes it so much easier from an administrative perspective.
But that would really help them specifically to get the age pension if they considered that.
Yes, and if we speak to the lovely Rebecca, she will also say that it will help because at over 67, you have the work bonus. that's available. So if you earn more than is allowed, you've got this little bank of money, and it doesn't take away from the age pension entitlement you're eligible for. So there's lots of things to actually look at in regard to that.
Yes, because if people just don't know about it, they might think, A, it suits me, and B, they're leaving something on the table that they would rightfully get.
Thank you, because it is a legal right to have superannuation paid when you're on a regular payment, as in you're on leave or you're at work. But if you just take that lump sum and you cash it out of leave and annual leave and, sorry, when I say leave, it's long service leave and annual leave. If you just cash that out, then you kiss who knows how much goodbye. If you were thinking about it, just using $50,000 as an entitlement, you would be throwing away 10% would be $5,000 in superannuation contributions. So you would be looking at another 2% on top of that. So you would be throwing away $6,000 worth of superannuation contributions on your $50,000 cash out of your leave.
Gail, how can you be reached?
You can call me on 0407 159 298, or you can email me at Gayle, Gayle, at prosperityplanning.com.au.
Gail, we've looked at a lot of benefits of not taking lump sums of long service leave and annual leave, but assuming that it is cashed out, can people lose a lot of tax if they, for example, do so in June rather than July?
What happens with all leave entitlements, if they're cashed out, they get added to your normal assessable income. So if you've already got almost a whole year's worth of income that's been paid and you cash out your leave on top of it, then it's pushing your assessable income for the year potentially into a higher tax bracket. But if you wait until early in the next financial year, you won't necessarily get access to the first 18,200 tax-free threshold on that week's pay if you cash it out, but you will have that available to you when you eventually do your tax return. You may get a refund, depending upon what other income you have for the year, bearing in mind that an age pension is a taxable income.
Yes, so you would imagine that most people, if they have choice, would wait for that new financial year just to click over if they're getting extra pay.
Yeah, it's very common for people to use the strategy. I know if I'm helping people and I want them to retire, I usually say to them, can we do it in the new financial year? Because it allows me then, if there is going to be large payouts or capital gains that we need to manage, we have the capacity then to use the tax-free threshold. And also we can sometimes make contributions to superannuation to offset the extra income, which would give them a tax deduction and maybe save them some tax. So there's pluses and minuses to your timing. Some people can do it. If it's a medical thing, you're just going to have to suck it up.
That's so true. I guess we're talking about making an informed decision. This has been a really valuable episode. Thank you so much, Gail.
Oh, you're welcome.
For our international listeners wishing to join our Facebook group, the code word is yellow. And as always, this is information only and not personal advice. Bye for now.